Good afternoon, and welcome to Over It Live. I'm Joe Carducci, Jojo from Jers on socials, so my trolls know where to find me while they're in their basements. I'm joined, as usual, by the beautiful ladies that are here with me today. We have Tara Setmeyer, who you can find at Uncompromised over on Substack, also co-founder of the Seneca Project, and Michelle Kinney, her co-founder of the Seneca Project, looking beautiful this morning. And of course, Julie Roginski, Salty Politics on Substack, where she's killing it every single day. I don't know how you do it, my friend. I try really hard and I get there. I'm like, I can't. But welcome, everyone, and welcome to everybody in the chat. Happy Wednesday on this Memorial Day shortened week. How you guys doing?
Hey,
you know, we're all things considered, we're here, we're in the fight, and it's just another one of those weeks with a bunch of different affronts to so many things that we hold near and dear to all, for not only for all of us personally, but just as law-abiding, Constitution-abiding by Americans. It's just there's a lot to talk about today.
I like your t-shirt, Tara.
Thank you. I am supporting Harvard.
But it is another week where we are still able to speak freely and nobody's shutting us down yet. I assume
not yet.
That day will come eventually when they try, but not today, Satan.
That's right. Not today. I have a mug that says not today. I don't have it. It doesn't say not today, Satan, but it says not today. So I should have grabbed that. Maybe I'll save that for Saturday.
Yeah. I love that you pointed out, Julie, that while we can use our free speech, because not only is it coming from Trump, the attack is coming from the State Department, Marco Rubio. I mean, they're going to check your social media now if you can see if you can come into this country at all. Like, I mean, are they already doing that?
It's funny that you say that. It's funny, it's not the word. I will tell you something that I thought about a few days ago, and it just shows what the world that we're living in now. So I am an American citizen.
Mm-hmm.
And I am flying abroad. And as you guys know, maybe people who watch the show don't know, but the four of us know. I'm leaving country for about a week, in a couple weeks. And I was thinking about flying back. And I don't know if people know this, but when you're at the border, you don't have any rights as an American citizen until you cross through customs immigration. So when you land, when your airport lands and you're going through immigration, you have no rights under the United States Constitution because you're not technically on American soil, which is why they're able to take you and do whatever they want to you there. Mm-hmm. They've done this to so many people who've come into the country. That's where they get you. And that's where they can detain you for as long as you want without any habeas requirements or anything else. So I was thinking I need to probably scrub my phone because they can come up to you and demand to see your phone. And they have asked, I know people, do you have anything critical of Donald Trump on your phone? And, I read a Substack that is very critical of Donald Trump every single day. And I was thinking about this and I was like, holy shit. Is this really the country we're living in? Yeah. Where I have to scrub my phone? Like, really? And coming back into this country as an American citizen where I have First Amendment rights to criticize and petition my government?
Mm-hmm.
Apparently not.
But I thought there's some limits to that though. Like they can't go into your phone without a warrant.
I think at the border, they can do whatever they want. They can have your phone.
Yeah. From what I know, that's why they're telling people to take your Face ID off of it. That if you leave it just as a password, they actually cannot force you to open your phone unless they have a warrant.
Right.
But
still, your point, bigger,
like the fact that we have to do all this is
right.
insane.
Yeah, it's just nuts. Because I thought about that when we came back from Morocco, and they didn't mess with it because that's why we flew into Canada, and I was like. And frankly, I told you guys at the time in April, their global entry wasn't even available to us. They didn't have global entry was completely shut down because they'd fired so many people. They were shorthanded because we're global entry people, like we have all that stuff. And there was no global entry. We had to stand on the line like everybody else because it was blocked off, shut down because it was in the middle of all the Doge bullshit. And but I was curious to see. Now, my husband's a federal officer. They didn't give us a hard time at all. Again, we were in Canada, so it was a little bit different. Still U.S. Customs and Border Protection that does this. But I thought about it and I was like, are they really going to do this? But thankfully, we didn't experience that. But we've heard the horror stories of American citizens being interrogated about this and and have their phones looked at, which is nuts.
Yep.
Nuts.
Yep.
Another abuse of power. I mean, this is tangential, but I was listening to a news story this morning about a high school student from the Bronx. Did you hear about this? Who is sitting in detention right now because he went to, like he's supposed to. He came here seeking asylum from Venezuela. He went to his asylum hearing, and like we keep hearing so many times, they arrested him. They canceled it, arrested him. This is no criminal record whatsoever. He's supporting his family. He's a high school kid, and now he's sitting in a detention center with no due process, and they're talking about expediting his deportation to a country he's not even from. 16-year-old kid, I think. I mean, this is what they're doing, and it's just they keep trampling on the Constitution, and I mean, it's like the court's going to hear cases like the Harvard case tomorrow, but still, I mean, they're just running
really slowly. And that's what they're counting on. They're counting on the fact that the courts move really slowly because the court, you have to file briefs, and then you have to, then response brief, and then motions, and like they know that the courts take forever, and that by the time the courts take forever, they're on a plane to South Sudan, which is what's happening now. But the part about the story that you're talking about, Joe, that really upsets me as a New Yorker is that this boy is a high school student and was taken from a public school in the Bronx. What upsets me about this is that the mayor of New York, who has control over the public schools, that the mayors of New York always, always, always demanded control of the public schools, and Mike Bloomberg got it back from the state. Eric Adams, the current mayor, who has been buddy-buddy with this administration, especially with Tom Homan. Remember when they did a joint appearance on Fox a couple of months ago?
Yeah.
Who effectively got his criminal case dismissed so that he can bend the knee to Donald Trump on immigration matters, was asked about this. And what Eric Adams said was, what are you asking me for? I have nothing to do with this. This is a federal issue. You know what? You're the fucking mayor of New York, right? Never have the mayors of New York said, oh, I don't know. I don't have an opinion. Like you're
since when?
Since when? Since
New York's like its own little country.
He represents more people than like the state of Montana or Wyoming. Like, do you know what I'm saying?
Times
like
10. Times 10.
Right. It's like I can't. I hate that guy.
But when your own neck is on the line.
The population of New York City is the same population of New Jersey, an entire state, right? Which is the most densely populated state. There are 9 million people living in New York.
Yep.
And I'm so grossed out by him because I'm so grossed out by all of these politicians who, to save themselves, bend the knee. And that's exactly what they're all doing. So many of them. And, if you're not going to lead, dude, because you're afraid of Donald Trump, just stop running. Like, you're obviously, he's running for re-election. And my bottom line is like, just leave, just go. If you're not going to do what you have to do. Which is call your friend Tom Homan and say, hey, not in my city. But of course, he can't do that because the minute he does that, suddenly, I know they dismiss his case with prejudice, but they'll find something else to indict him on.
That's why they did that.
Because once you give an inch, they will take a mile, which will bring me to my overt in a minute. But I can't with him.
But that's why, just so people understand, they dismissed his case with prejudice instead of just dismissing it without prejudice, which means they couldn't bring it back up again, that it's clear. They dismissed it with prejudice, which means that they still have the option to dangle something, or the opposite, right? Other way around.
They dismissed it
the other way.
They didn't dismiss it with prejudice. The judge said to them, I have no choice but to dismiss this because the DOJ said it. But since you're dismissing it, I'm going to insist that you dismiss it with prejudice, which means that you can't bring it up. But that's okay.
Right. Whatever. But the point is that they were leaving it open so that they could basically blackmail him again to pressure him into doing whatever they need him to do, because he wants a full pardon from all the stuff that he was involved in. And that's why they did that. So now he's their little puppet. and they can pull the strings, and Eric Adams will do it. And the main thing was immigration, because it's ridiculous. Then not only are they're allowing these immigration thugs to be at schools and churches and places like that, but the idea that they're sitting outside of courts and courthouses where folks are coming to do the proper process, go through the proper process, and then they're dismissing the cases so that when they leave, they can snatch them from the courthouses. And it's like, or their hearings, wherever they're being held. That is so insidious.
And if I'm a Democrat, if I'm an elected official, if I'm a member of Congress, if I'm a legislator at all, I'm going there right now. I'm showing up there and making everybody see the face of this story, what is happening. Because like what happened, Michelle, in that little town in New York State with that family, and that worked. It worked. The public outcry worked. It wasn't a partisan issue. It wasn't a political issue. This is a kid who has done nothing wrong. He was following the process he's supposed to follow, and in doing so, he may now end up on a plane without any due process of any kind, away from his family in a foreign gulag. Right? This is the kind of thing that I don't care how you vote. The American people do not want this. This is not what they thought they were voting for, whether or not it is or isn't. They were voting for the hard criminals, the gang members, whatever. Again, due process is due process is due process, and everyone's entitled to it. But make this kid the face of what they're doing, of the depravity, of the cruelty. Show up there. Put this in Republicans' laps right now. But no, that's not what's happening. They're not talking about it at all. I had to hear it on a sort of like drive-by quick little story on the news, and then it was on to the next outrage du jour. And I think they're missing sadly opportunities, because they can affect change, like what happened with that. And Michelle, I don't know if you want to remind people what happened with that family in that little town in New York, but this is
So it's a little village. I don't even know that there's like 1,000 people who live there. It's called Sackets Harbor, New York. It's right on Lake Ontario. And it happens to be where Tom Homan has a house. He is originally from Carthage, New York, which is about 5 minutes from Fort Drum, the 10th Mountain Division. But in his later years, he has bought a lakefront property in Sackets Harbor. And in this place, there were 3 kids who, again, their family were doing all the right things. They had gone through all of the legal, motions and court dates and everything for them to gain access, I think, to citizenship or something like that. And they were beloved in the community. Everyone knew them. It's a tiny, tiny public school there. It's like K through 12 in one school. And so when these 3 kids didn't show up to school, everybody was like, what's going on? And so, of course, per usual, it was the women in the superintendent, I believe the principal of the school, who stood up and said, not on my watch, not in my school. And they raised hell. And they made national news. And because of that, there were protests in Sackets Harbor. Again, a little tiny village on Lake Ontario. They made a lot of noise. And I think because particularly it was in Tom Homan's backyard, I think that it was able to make more of an impact on this particular story. But I mean, it did work. It worked. I mean, I think the public pressure in his personal life was so large and so big that I think he knew he could never show his face back there again. So.
But Joe, you raise, I think, a really interesting thing about where the Democrats are. And I just want to read a quote from Max Tanney of Semaphore, who published a story a couple of days ago, effectively about the Democratic Party. And I'm going to read this quote because I think it's relevant. In Washington this week, this is Tanney writing from Semaphore, I spoke with a few congressional staffers who said that they had tried using Blue Sky as an alternative to Twitter after Twitter was purchased by Elon Musk, but they gave up after their bosses kept getting yelled at by Democratic users angry at their impotence. I actually wrote a newsletter on this too, which basically says that I am shocked that according to the most recent Pew poll, Democrats enjoy 75% approval. The Democratic Party enjoys a 75% approval rating from Democrats. Because as a Democrat who has devoted my entire professional career to electing Democrats, so nobody's more pro-Democratic Party than I am not part of that 75%. I am part of the 25%, and I believe that number is probably much bigger, who is disgusted with the Democratic Party. Because if you can't take a little bit of criticism from people on Blue Sky who are angry at you because you are writing angry letters to Donald Trump demanding answers that he will never respond to and that he throws in the garbage, rather than breaking through the media noise. If you are a Ro Khanna who is running to every cable news network, self-flagellating over the fact that you really could have sworn that Joe Biden was in good shape, but now that you read Jake Tapper's book, you know that you were misled by Joe Biden. If you are doing that, as opposed to pointing out that, as Joe said, a high school student was arrested by ICE in New York City this week, if you are doing that as opposed to pointing out that our tariff policy is making prices rise every single day, if you are doing that as opposed to pointing out that every amendment in this Constitution, except the second, is being violated on a daily basis by this administration, then yeah, you know what? I don't support you and I don't approve of you. And I have spent a shitload more time dedicating my life to the Democratic Party than Ro Khanna has, because I'm older and I've spent more time toiling on its behalf.
Are you? He looks a lot older.
Yeah, he does.
I think I'm older than Ro Khanna,
Hmm.
but I have to look that up. But the point is, I've been around longer than Ro Khanna, and I am grossed out. I am disgusted by these members. Like, my anger is through the roof right now.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
listen, just to point out that in the beginning, when Doge first started its destruction of our government, and when the announcements were made about how they were going to have this Doge committee in Congress, and there were a bunch of these Democrats that ran over to be a part of this bullshit, and Ro Khanna was one of the first. And we at Seneca Project made a video about this called "Do Not Obey in Advance." Because he was one of the first people that had his mug out there talking about, this is a great idea. I'll work with Elon or anyone who wants to blah, 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 blah. And we were like, are you serious, dude? Are you that fucking stupid? Sorry, Julie's dad. But this is part of his entire, persona here. This is his shtick. And I don't know who he thinks that's appealing to. Doesn't he represent a pretty progressive district?
He represents Silicon Valley, so that's why he ran to the Doge thing. By the way, yes, it is sadly true. I am older than Ro Khanna. I just looked it up.
Oh, you look good.
Well, you look better.
We're all older than.
But I'm also older, as we discuss all the time, than Blanche from the Golden Girls when that show launched. So the whole depression thing can kick in later. But the part, like, it is just insane to me that on the one hand, Ro Khanna is running to New Jersey to do a town hall in Tom Kaine's Republican congressional district.
That's mine.
He was, in your home district. I presume a couple weeks ago, and got thousands of people to show up. I presume that is because he wants to run for president. Because why else would you show up?
I was going to say, what is his end game here? He really thinks that he's got a shot.
He's obviously running. I'm sorry. No. Do you think you have a shot if you sit there and you say that you want to work with Elon Musk to deprive foreign aid from AIDS children?
Right.
Do you think that you have a shot if you're running around cable news, beating your chest and saying, you're so right, Jake Tapper. I cannot believe that Joe Biden misled all of us. But wait a second, I only saw him casually a few times. So don't blame me for saying that he was incredibly fit to run for re-election, which Ro Khanna did repeatedly. I don't mean to single out Ro Khanna because he's one of 20 that I could think off the top of my head. But it's this incredible malfeasance on the part of these Democrats.
Yes.
That
because he gets a lot of airtime. That's another thing too. There are others, but he's the one that mugs for the camera all the time. So
you know why, right?
Of course.
Because let me tell you, and Tara, back me up on this. Let me tell you how it works in cable news, right? There's two types of cable news outlets. The ones where it comes from the top, and you can figure out which one this is, that every single anchor on a daily basis has to row from the same boat and talk about Benghazi or talk about, Hillary Clinton's emails or whatever it is. And that's from on high. That is where the direction comes from. The other kind is where a producer says, wait a second, we can get clicks and we can get attention if we have a Democrat trashing a former Democratic president, because that's unusual, right? In the same way, it would be unusual if all of a sudden Republicans started trashing Donald Trump, which of course they never would. If you want to be that useful idiot that makes a segment producer happy by showing up on cable news to get airtime so that you can show up because you're saying something unexpected, i.e., I'm a Democrat and I'm going to trash a Democratic president, God bless, you're going to get airtime. But it's not the kind of airtime you want, because while you're appealing to segment producers on CNN or MSNBC, you're not appealing to the viewers who you want to support you if you want to run for president. And that is what you're doing.
That's right.
And you're not expanding your reach. You're not expanding your base. You're not expanding, who might be interested in voting for you. Again, it goes back to, they're too busy doing that, chasing those carrots, while they should be going on offense at every turn. This the big billionaire boner bill, which is, let's do alliterative, right? Like, that's what it is. Yeah. This is an opportunity right now. Those fuckers in the House passed this garbage that fucking Ron Johnson is like, no, this is too far. Let Doge himself, Phony Stark. This adds too much to our debt and deficit. This bullshit was passed by everybody but who? Tom Massey, right? I think there anybody else. Every fucker in that House on the Republican side voted for this shit, and every Democrat right now needs to be out there taking the momentum of the pure insanity. Even Floridamort, freaking what's his senator in Florida? What's his name?
Rick Scott.
Rick Scott.
Even Rick Scott. I call him Floridamort, so I can't remember his real name. Rick Scott is against this shit, and I see a few Democrats out there, and I always talk about him.
You know why?
Bro, he had a town hall with Senator Bennett last night, and where they talked about this. Go on the offense, put the pressure on the Senate right now to reject every fucking line in this shit, and also including not being able to hold your elected officials in contempt of court. This is where the Democrats should be right now. I don't want to hear another fucking word, and I love the man about Joe Biden and his cognitive this or that, or the goddamn auto pen. I want to talk about what is facing us as a country right now, and what the Republican Party is trying to shove down our throats. The biggest cut to Medicaid, and by the way, Medicare, leaving kids without SNAP assistance. Those kids did nothing. All of that to make the gap between the wealthiest in this country and the poorest in this country the biggest it's ever been. That's what I want to hear from my elected officials right now. I don't care about, working with people on the other side of the aisle. I want pressure on those assholes every minute of the day.
You're 100% right, Joe. And that's exactly why the Democrats' branding is terrible. That's why Rahm Emanuel, who recently wrote an op-ed about this, calling the Democratic Party too weak and woke, and that they need to cut the shit out, and they need to focus in on the chaos, the cruelty, and the corruption. And he's 100% correct. Yeah. And the fact this bill, and honestly, the Democrats should have come up with an alternative name. I don't care if they call it the big bullshit bill. They should have done something. That's what we called it at Seneca Project. Every news anchor, whether it's in jest or not, they're out here joking about, Trump's big, beautiful bill. They're just perpetuating the propaganda every time they fucking repeat it.
They're just repeating. Yeah, it's just like they repeat it.
It's so insane. The lie. Whether it's in jest or not, it doesn't matter. That's what people hear. So they think it's a big, beautiful bill, when it's actually the opposite. It is the opposite. And I mean, this is everywhere, from Bloomberg to Fox to CNN to the right-wing crazies, to NPR. Like, people, even though one side is just repeating it because that's what Trump calls it, but the other side's repeating it because that's what they want it to sound like. It doesn't matter. That's what people hear. And so in their minds, they think that this is a great thing. We saw, Julie and I think both commented on this, the New York Times headlines, the Washington Post headline, ABC, whitewashing the headlines of what was in this bill. And I'm listening to even local news, the way they're framing it. Well, it's a big, beautiful bill, but Donald Trump to cut middle class taxes, and
which it doesn't do. And it's
like doesn't even do.
And then that's the thing too. And this is like a bigger subject about, and we talk about this often on this show and our other shows and amongst ourselves, is how the media is failing us. And this is, people don't read articles anymore. They just don't. The vast majority of people see headlines, and that's all they see. And so when the New York Times even was reporting on Donald Trump at West Point the other day, saying, Donald Trump brings forth a new attitude or like whatever it is.
Golden
and he was
age.
rambling.
Donald Trump praises cadets and talks about
Right.
new golden age of military.
Right.
Some
And
bullshit like
it's
that.
not only just malpractice at this point. It is, you know,
Purposeful.
it is purposeful. It's, the whole do not obey in advance. They are obeying in advance. This is all obeying in advance because they're all afraid of getting sued or, being attacked or whatever
But they
it
will
is.
anyway, which is the frustrating part.
Exactly.
They're doing this in vain. He's coming for them regardless.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the reason I was looking at my phone, because I was trying to find the damn thing. If you wanted to watch it, I do have the do not obey in advance video where that Ro Khanna is talking about Doge and I'll work with Elon Musk and everything. Because it's like going back and watching it now is wild.
It is wild because
I feel like we've lived 1,000 lives since then. And like watching them all just kind of be like, well, this is in December we made it. Mid-December.
That's right. It was after the election. It was at a time where a lot of people, like, listen, we were all curled up in the corner in the fetal position for a minute there because we were just so shell-shocked at what happened because we all knew what was coming. But we also knew that we couldn't stay in that fetal position for very long because guess who was not stopping? The other side. I say this all the time. And Joe says it too. When I talk about you have to go on offense. Offense wins elections. Defense wins championships. Offense wins fucking elections. And the Democrats were slow and still are for going on constant offense. And while they're still pussyfooting around, the Republicans are lockstep goose marching down Pennsylvania Avenue, destroying our democracy on a daily basis. It's very frustrating for those of us who have the weapons, but we don't have the ammunition to make those weapons go because Democrats are unwilling to finance the fighters like us that are trying to get this out there. They have a gift with this bill. A gift. There are so many aspects of this bill that you could tailor to whatever, swing district, and you get that out there and you put it out there and you repeat it over and over again and tell people the truth.
There's a reason they're convening at 1:30 in the morning. You know what I mean? It's like
there's a reason they shoved it through reconciliation. There's a reason.
And there's a reason that Donald Trump's friends and their super PACs that are run by Chris LaCivita and his pollsters out here running hero ads repeatedly. I'm sure there are people in the comments right now that have seen these ads running over and over again with praising Donald Trump for his energy policy, for his tariff policy, for his what he's doing with Medicare and Medicaid and insurance, which is nuts because it's the complete opposite. But there are these big hero ads saying, thank you, Mr. President, for making America proud again. We're so proud of you. Repeatedly, over and over. And I was in a Democratic group chat and I screen recorded it and said, is anybody over at the DNC or anybody, are they planning on, is there a counter message to this? Because this is a national ad campaign. It's being played in DC to San Francisco. What are y'all doing?
And they're not up. There's not a major election happening for them right now, which means, again, there are no off years. There are no off months. Like they're getting like a year and a half ahead of this. To try to beat the drum and by osmosis, and like the Democrats aren't doing shit unless there's like a Democratic primary.
I'll tell you what Democrats are doing. They're doing the Carvel strategy, which PS is a shitty strategy.
Just let them do that to themselves.
Right? Play possum, play dead, because eventually the voters will realize who's hurting them. No, the voters are not going to realize. No. Because by the time these ads do their job, this is the same way that McDonald's forces Big Macs on you, because if you have enough commercials coming at you, you think Big Macs are good.
Listen, it's why I buy half the shit on Instagram. Like they find me, and then I eventually buy the shirt that has a big cat on it.
Exactly. What they're going to buy, exactly right. What they're going to buy is that it is the fault of your governor. It is the fault of your legislature. It is the fault of your local mayor. It is the fault of the deep state, but it is not Donald Trump's fault because he's closing the border and bringing down prices. I mean, they are literally talking about how eggs are, you go on any of my social media right now, you go on Twitter, right? And you say to them, here are statistics from, I do this every Sunday in my Substack. Donald Trump promised on April 15th that he was going to lower the price of eggs, the price of apples, and the price of bacon. So every single week on Sundays, I put out numbers from the federal government, Donald Trump's own government, about the price of eggs, which come out monthly, the price, I don't know why I'm heads up, sorry, the price of eggs, which come out monthly, the price of bacon, which come out comes out monthly, and the price of apples, which comes out weekly. I don't know why apples come out weekly, whereas the others don't. And guess what? Every single week and every single month, those prices are higher than they were in December, the last month that Joe Biden was in office.
Yep.
That is not me making up those numbers. Those numbers are coming from the federal government, which is entirely run by Donald Trump.
And every Democrat, every time they get in front of a podium, when they're talking about the bill or talking about the economy, should fucking repeat this every time.
Here's what I'm hearing from social media, from people who are MAGA Kool-Aid drinkers. You're lying. That's not true.
Yeah.
Really? Here's the link to the federal government, which is run by the President of the United States. It is from the administration. It is from the executive branch, entirely 100% run by Donald Trump. It is his numbers. And the answer is you're lying.
You know what ad I want to see, Tara, in response to this bullshit propaganda ad about Donald Trump? I wasn't necessarily going to jump to my over it yet, but actually it kind of works because can you play the video of the Vietnam vet? This is what I want to talk about. These are the kinds of ways we go back on offense. I don't know if you have it, but we need to tell the fucking stories of the truth.
Yes.
Democrats should be highlighting the stories of the veterans this is impacting, of the single mothers this is impacting, of the kids in public schools who are starving, of the states in this country that are on 4-day school weeks.
We can't always go towards their weakness. We have to go toward their strength. And those are the things that they're always talking about is families and the military. And you have to go at them there and say they're lying to you because they're trying to kill everybody. Sorry, Joe, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Joe.
Because I think we have.
Show them.
Hi, my name is Don. I'm a Vietnam veteran. Thank you. I'm not a sucker or a loser. I fought for freedom and democracy for all of you. I went to Vietnam when I was 19 years old only. Imagine that, 19. And I saw shit I can't talk about. I had PTSD for years. I couldn't get no help. I came home from Vietnam, nobody gave a shit. All I saw was protesters. And I fought for our freedom. Now they want to take our benefits away. We earned those benefits. We fought for them. Am I pissed off? Yeah. Damn right. Do I hate Trump? Yes. Pete Hegseth, I hate him. We don't, us veterans, we deserve better. We deserve all of our benefits. Health care. I've had cancer 3 times, but the VA cured me. I was lucky. I was a door gunner in a Huey unit in Vietnam. I served 18 months over there. The only one that really cared about us was President Joe Biden. Our benefits got better because of President Joe. Now look at us. They want to cut services. You can't get appointments made. We don't deserve this. I didn't vote for it. Did you? No. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, by the way, I hadn't seen that.
Me either.
Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the stories, and I'm going to get so emotional.
I'm like,
I know,
up here. It makes me so angry.
Me too. And like, where is that man's voice right now? How powerful is what he said? This is happening all over this country, not just to our veterans community, but to so many people who voted for Trump too. And those are the stories. That's a painful thing to hear, and it hits you hard. And my over it has to do with that, but it ties into what you said, Tara, about the propaganda about how they're sane-washing Trump as some patriot hero. That's a lie. It's a provable, easily disputed lie.
Yep.
And he stands up in front of West Point, which is one of these institutions of great respect. I have family who graduated from there. Again, you guys know I talk about the military all the time. This is near and dear to my heart. To watch him standing up there with that fucking MAGA hat on, disrespecting them by insulting when they signed up by saying no one signed up under Joe Biden. Every one of those cadets did. Every fucking one of them. And he's a 5-time draft dodging, fake fucking bone spurs, lying, POW, mocking Gold Star family, insulting widow of a deceased member of the military, mocking again. Like this is the guy who bragged about getting a Purple Heart because someone gave it to him because it was easier.
He said I always wanted one.
He said his personal in Vietnam was not getting STDs.
Correct.
Right. Like how many data points? Just look at his Memorial Day post on social media.
I know.
Thank you, Emily. There's not a word about what that day is about. It is instead this small, fucking narcissistic, sociopathic scumbag spouting off in nonsensical, all caps bullshit about his personal grievance. And I could go into that all day long because Memorial Day insults him on some different level, because it's not about him, but also it's about something greater than oneself.
That's correct.
It's about sacrifice for something bigger than just me. And that is something he will fundamentally never be able to understand. So he wants to spit on anyone who does that. And we're not going to talk about the $45 million small in the pants parade, but when you listen to that veteran, when you listen to what he needs from our government, from our president, it's not a parade. It's not a stupid speech. It is support. It is not a gutted VA. And yet they're still planning on firing 80,000 more. And they've already fired more veterans than any president in our history. And those are the ads I want to see from my Democratic congressmen and Democratic elected officials. That's what I want to see on TV. Buy an ad with that guy's story. Take the offense. Go on offense. Make them own this shit. Yep. That's what I'm over. That's
and play it in front of every single military base district and every swing district for Republicans. That's what you do with Democrats saying, this is what they've done to you.
Yep.
You played up before Drum. You played up in Stefanik's district. That's
right.
You played up.
That's right.
Yep.
But I want to just illustrate, based on what Joe said.
So true, Joe.
How deep the rot is in MAGA land. If you could throw up that picture, I don't know if you have it, that I just sent you. So I wanted to show something. This picture I took. It is you guys know I have a house in Pennsylvania. It is down the road from my house in Pennsylvania. And this sign has been up since the first Trump administration and never went down after January 6th, never went down when he wasn't president. It has been up permanently. And I just want to be very clear about something. This is what we're dealing with. Jesus is my savior. Trump is my president. That is what the sign says to people who might be listening but not watching. That is not a rational person you can have a discussion with.
No.
Yeah,
that is somebody who equates Donald Trump with Jesus Christ. Because I could promise you that if any Democrat said Jesus is my savior and Barack Obama is my president, there would be a march on this guy's house and it would have been burnt down.
Yep.
Sacrilege for disrespecting Jesus Christ, for comparing Barack Obama to a date, like all of the above. And
they did do that, by the way. Yes. I know, because I used to be at the Tea Party rallies. Trust me, that was something that they did. And they would try to equate Barack Obama with Mao or with other like crazy, communist type figures that had cult-like followings. They tried to do this.
And so if you want to see Christian nationalism in practice, it is that sign. And that is from a rando guy in Eastern Pennsylvania who lives among people, by the way. Half that town voted for Biden, half that town voted for Trump. It goes back and forth. It so happened that particular town voted for Trump this time around, but voted for Biden in 20. So I want to say this to say that there is a group of people that you're never.
We saw it when we were there, Tara.
Yeah. A group.
No,
of,
this woman Jacqueline said, I
Yeah.
went to Seneca
Yep.
Women's Rights Memorial in Seneca Falls, and MAGA flags were on the lawns
Mhm.
across the street. We can vouch for that because we went
Yeah.
there last year and saw something similar. But we also did see some Biden signs there too, which was interesting. It's an interesting mix up there. But yes, the juxtaposition of those things and MAGA it's everywhere. It's crazy. Sorry, go ahead, Julie.
But I just want to say that to Joe's point is that there are people like that you'll never reach, right? There are too
Right.
far.
Right.
That's right.
Some of them are on our chat this morning, and thank you for joining us again.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thanks for
So
helping the
glad- I'm so
algorithm.
glad I'm not watching the chat
So,
today.
There's a guy with a Russian name here who called us who said in Russian here, Russia will own America.
Oh, great.
Okay, thank you.
Well, they already own the White House, so
You know what?
I guess you're halfway there, buddy.
Yeah,
Who
you're
doesn't at this point?
You're not telling us anything we don't already know.
Well, you put
Can
that.
I-
You put that in the future tense. Actually, you should put that in the present
Yeah.
tense. That's not the point. The point is, some of you we will never reach, but there are plenty of people, as Joe said, who would be reached by showing that video of that better.
Absolutely.
Yes,
There are
yes,
plenty of
yes.
people you will reach by personalizing and putting a face to the woman who's being kept alive right now
Yes.
as an incubator for her fetus, despite the fact that she is dead for all intents and purposes.
Yep.
And when that baby is viable, it is a very good chance that it will be born dead as well. Or
Yes.
once it's out of the womb, it will not
Or
survive.
it won't survive. It won't
It'll
survive.
suffer.
But
And
forever.
just so that people understand, what Julie's talking about is a case happening right now in Georgia because of their draconian anti-abortion laws, that there is a woman who is brain dead that is being, against the will of her family, being kept alive because she's pregnant. And and they want to get the fetus to the point where it's viable, and then I guess try to deliver it. But they
Wow.
also medically, it's unlikely that the fetus would even survive anyway. And
Yeah.
so this is insane. And it's all because of the fact that they have this.
And this is something straight out of The Handmaid's Tale, which
It is.
which again, when Margaret Atwood wrote that book in the 80s, she promised herself, I'm not going to depict any sort of storyline or scenario that already hasn't happened or is happening to women somewhere in the world. And so to bring it all together, to Joe, what you so beautifully and so passionately communicated, and quite frankly, if the Democrats could learn how to communicate like you, or like that Vietnam veteran who spoke so authentically, I think we'd be in a much better place as a country. And I just want to say really quick before we move on is that The Handmaid's Tale finale was yesterday, and I'm not going to give anything away as to what happens. But it's amazing that this show premiered in April of 2017, in the first few months of Donald Trump's first term. And here we are as the show ends in the beginning of his second. And I just want to say something really quick. And I won't say who says this or why or anything like that, but there's this really great point that's made in the finale where she says that they're never going to stop coming for us. And when we're gone, they will come for our children, and they're going to come for our grandchildren. And fighting may not get us everything we want, but we do not have a choice.
Yep.
We have to fight. We have to fight. And Gilead does not, or MAGA, does not need to be beat. It needs to be broken.
Broken. Yep.
And
that's the line.
that is what we have to continue to tell ourselves in this fight, because like Julie said, in that sign and that crazy person's lawn, those people were never going to get to them.
No.
But we need their operation and their movement to be broken from the inside. And the only way that we're going to be able to do that is if we're resilient, if we continue to fight, we don't back down, and we don't give in. And we do not have any other choice, because not fighting is how we got here in the first place.
Which they also address often throughout the show, because there were people that just looked the other way or thought it couldn't happen. And then next thing you know, how did we get here? And then it's like, well, because when you had the chance to stop it, you didn't. And that's
because there's always a what if, right? Unless they see, unless human beings see the danger right here, And even then, you know, you had people like in the hospital with COVID they were being intubated and they're like, no, I don't have COVID. And they're like, then they die. You know, it's just like, but I don't know why human beings are like this. I'm not a psychiatrist, or a psychologist, but, you know, I just think that there are days, weeks, even months that I'm just like, what am I doing? Like, am I making a difference? Like, am I just rearranging the deck chairs in the Titanic? That's what it feels like sometimes. It really, really does.
No,
but watching this yesterday, I was sobbing sitting on my couch.
Yeah.
Because it was just such a timely reminder of like, we have to do this so our kids don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we
and our
can't normalize
grandkids.
Right. We can't normalize any of it. Like everyone else, everyone else is over it today. I don't know who wants to go next, but it's also about how insane it is and how kind of glossed over and normalized all of this crazy. Like you're right, Michelle, about the fight, but also we got to show people who look like them. We have to show them real people that live lives like they do. Again, that veteran, but more than that, there's so many more than that.
And speak plainly and in plain English.
And I don't know who wants to go next, but and to stand up and call these abuses of power and this insanity what it is 24/7. So I mean, I don't know who wants to go next.
Well, to your point, I guess I'll go with mine, which is the media, which I know we feel like we talk about all the time, but I want to spend a few minutes on the corporate media and what's happening right now, because I think it's important to remind people what's happening. If we all remember, Disney settled a lawsuit right after the election with Trump, which is a completely meritless lawsuit. When George Stephanopoulos said that Donald Trump, and I use the word rape because it's relevant to the lawsuit, raped E. Jean Carroll. According to New York law, vaginally and digitally penetrating a woman's vagina does not constitute rape. It constitutes sexual assault. Trump sued, even though a judge said that under the terms of how people normally understand rape, that is exactly what Donald Trump did. Trump sued. And this case, I mean, a first-year law student would know this case had no merit. But after he won the election, Disney insisted, and I cannot believe Stephanopoulos agreed to this, that they settle this lawsuit for $15 million to Trump's presidential library, which we don't even know where that's going to be. Ground has not been broken. It's going straight into Trump's pocket, but that's neither here nor there. And $1 million in legal fees. Okay, Disney did that. Then you had Meta, who also Trump sued after January 6th for throwing him off of Facebook for inciting a riot. And the minute that Trump won re-election, Mark Zuckerberg wrote him a $25 million check and bought a house in Washington to be set closer to Trump to suck up, and went to his inauguration and gave him $1 million for his inauguration. And God only knows what other money he's given Trump that we're not aware of. And they think, despite all of this, that Trump is going to let bygones be bygones. But I want to be very clear about why he's not. First of all, Trump went after Bob Iger, who hightailed it to the Oval Office, apparently, to fill him in on what's happening in, I think, Dubai or Abu Dhabi, where they're building a Middle Eastern Disney. And Trump said that this is going to be great for Disney and Bob Iger, what a great visionary. And then the next day went nuts on ABC for describing his little grift of a palace in the sky plane and said, I'm going to sue them again. It's not enough that they gave me $16 million in a lawsuit that they lost, which they didn't lose. I'm going to sue them again because they're misleading people about the fact that I am getting a plane from Qatar, and went nuts on ABC. Right? Then at the same time, Meta, despite giving $25 million to Trump and God only knows what else, thought that they were going to have an antitrust lawsuit that Biden's administration brought against them, dropped under Trump. Well, in fact, it didn't get dropped. And now they're in this lawsuit right now. And if they lose this lawsuit, Meta will be destroyed because they will be forced to sell off WhatsApp, and they'll be forced to sell off Instagram, which is more than 50% of their revenue. Yep. So I say this, and by the way, that will mean that Trump will be able to regulate big tech in ways that he's not allowed to now, which means that, of course, Truth Social is going to be able to do whatever it wants, but people who don't bend the knee, like Microsoft potentially and others, will not be able to do what they want. I say all this to say that there is no dealing with Trump, because there are two reasons for that. One is Trump knows that if you give him an inch, he can take a mile. So if you let him own you with these lawsuits and you settle them and you pay him money, he knows that he has you over a barrel and that you'll continue to do that the more he presses you. And two is, he's not an idiot. He knows that writing a $25 million check for Mark Zuckerberg is not really painful.
No.
Writing a $15 million check from Disney is not really painful to them.
Right.
And he is in the revenge business.
Mm-hmm.
He wants them to be in pain.
Mhm.
And he will not rest until they are in pain.
$25 million is like lunch money.
It's like lunch money. The
Yeah.
reason that TikTok has been allowed to continue operating, despite the fact that there's a law that says they have to stop, is, and by the way, flagrantly defying the law, is because TikTok ran more pro-Trump content
Yep.
in the election last year than anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And it has made very clear to TikTok that they better continue to run pro-Trump content, because if not, he will shut them down as the law dictates. But until they stop doing that, they're allowed to do whatever they want, and they can operate in the United States contrary to the law. That's how we live and how we operate. So until Disney turns all of their programming over to MAGA, until Facebook turns all of its programming over to MAGA, and Instagram and WhatsApp and any other digital company and any other legacy media company, he will not stop.
Right.
It's the same for Harvard, which
Thank
is
you.
why I'm wearing my Harvard gear today.
Mhm.
And
Bingo.
for those who are new here, I was a resident fellow at Harvard for a semester back in 2020. I still have affiliation with the Institute of Politics there, and I still have very close relationships with my kids who were in my cohort and on my team. And I have a lot of love for that opportunity up there. And what Harvard is doing and pushing back against what Trump is trying to do to them, they are just a microcosm of his revenge and retribution campaign that he's moving on from, well, not moving on from, but in conjunction with what he's doing to the media, what he's doing to businesses, to Julie's point, and in the media. And now it's higher education.
Mhm.
Harvard is just the beginning. They're going to do this to all of them. My good friend Joey Jackson, who is a legal analyst for CNN, he just did a quick video on LinkedIn talking about why this matters to everyone, because what Trump is doing by pressuring Harvard should scare the shit out of all of you, because it's not just about Harvard. It's not just about, the elites and the snobs up at Harvard and blah, blah, blah. No, what he's doing is using the levers of the federal government to dictate to a private institution who they should hire, what should be in their
Mhm.
curriculum, who they should allow in, and where their money should be spent. That is against our Constitution. It's unconstitutional. That's not what you do in a free and fair constitutional republic. But Trump is doing this because he hates the fact that he didn't get into Harvard, or maybe his son did or didn't. We don't know.
That's a rumor, and I'm like, I'd like to know.
I know.
If that's
I'd like
true.
to know.
And
Melania says it's not true, but do we
listen?
don't believe
If I
anything they
worked
say.
in Harvard admissions or like anywhere near it, and I was Harvard, and I really wanted to you want to play this game, I would make that shit public.
I mean, that would, but
Let me tell you something, Liberty University, you better be quick. You better pray to the sweet baby Jesus that Democrats are never in power again.
Uh-huh.
If this is allowed to stand, let me tell you something. The next Democratic president better come after liberty, better come after every church that supported Trump from the pulpit, and there are of them. Right, Robert Jeffries, you better be scared shitless, my friend.
I mean, the list.
Well,
the everybody
goes on. Fox News, if this is allowed to happen to Disney or allowed to happen to Meta, Rupert Murdoch, let me tell you something.
The Dems just need
or
to
Lachlan
to freaking do it.
If Dems, let me tell you something. If this is allowed to stand, and Dems don't do this, I am not voting for another. I love Joe Biden. I'm not voting for anybody else who thinks that we're going to be able to turn the clock on this.
Well, that's the problem.
That's right. That's my fear, is you're like, when we get, I'm like, yes, in a perfect world. I was like, I don't know that I trust the Democrats to do anything, because some of them are only really concerned about their pocketbooks or the trajectory of their careers or anything else. And I did pull a clip of Caroline Levitt talking about Ivy League schools. I was wondering, Emily, if we could play that just really quick.
president is more interested in giving that taxpayer money to trade schools, in programs, in state schools, where they are promoting American values, but most importantly, educating the next generation based on skills that we need in our economy and our society. Apprenticeships, electricians, plumbers. We need more of those in our country and less LGBTQ graduate majors from Harvard University. And that's what this administration's position is. And we also are not going to tolerate the illegal, criminal, anti-Semitic behavior that we saw take place at Harvard.
First of all, it's fewer LGBTQ, not less. But
and
there's
apprenticeships, not
apprenticeships,
right?
Apprenticeships. Rule number one: if you're going to drag formal education, know how to fucking say apprenticeship, you dumb Barbie bitch.
Uh-huh.
Well, the thing is, too, it's like, yes, I'm like, we absolutely, people should be going to trade school. We do need plumbers and electricians. It's a fantastic way to make a living, right? Yes, we need those people. Not everyone needs to go to college. I understand that. But we need both. We need people going to Ivy League schools. And by the way, let's look at all the people in Trump's cabinet who all went to Ivy League schools or Ivy League. Right. So
and by the way, the money that he's cutting off for Harvard primarily is not going to LGBTQ studies. It is going to fund things like Alzheimer's research, which killed at least one, but possibly 3 members of his family. And I'm pretty sure he's on his way there as well.
And it's not his money to spend. It's not his money to
take. And it's not his decision to make who goes to college where, or whether they choose to go to trade school, or what happens to private institutions. It's not his decision in a democracy.
And this is the party of independence, the party of personal freedom, right? Now they want to decide when and where you have babies.
Well, right.
Exactly.
And this is the elitism that is like the stench of elitism, like that comes from the roots of the Trump administration, is because when she's talking about those trade schools and plumbers, electricians, she's not talking about her kids. She's talking about your kids. She's talking about your kids. That's the kids. The kids of families that, you know, are mixed race and whatever else that aren't, you know.
Well, because a lot of the MAGAs in the red states, they're not getting into Harvard. No, they're not going to these places because their schools are underfunded, because they don't have the same quality and access as others do, and they hate it. They don't like that. And by the way, Harvard also recently said that they would not charge tuition to kids who had like less than $250,000.
Yeah, that's it. Yep,
income or whatever.
And so now they're offering free like American history or like civics.
Yeah, online.
Lessons
like they need to stop it, and because they're doing this because they do not want America to be the apple of the eye of the world when it comes to our technology, to our education systems and all this. They want to, because if you have smart, educated people here, you can't control them. That is what this is about. They want us, and we say it repeatedly, they want us sicker, poorer, and dumber so they can control us. So what do? You go for the institutions of higher learning so that you don't have the robust access to the best and brightest, not only here, but in the world. That's why they're going for that. That's why the United States, we're not a nuts and bolts economy anymore. The industrialized manufacturing empire that we once were 150 years ago is no longer the case and never will be again. They can try to convince their idiot MAGA cultists that you guys are going to be the ones that make America great again because you're going to go back to working in the widget factories because you should, and it's better for you. No, that is a fantasy. They're again, propaganda to convince these people that what's hurting them is good for them. We are a services economy. We are a technology economy. That is what makes America the greatest country in the world. And Donald Trump is trying to undermine all of that so that he can rule, so his little, crypto bros can come in and start their network states and make us all the little labor people that keep those people in power. Right. It's a centralized power.
Elon Musk came to this country to study at an Ivy League institution. He came to study at Penn.
Right.
That's right.
And Donald Trump ran around praising himself for getting into Wharton, even though he did not get into Wharton.
Right.
Wharton is a graduate school. It's a business school. He got into Penn, but only after he transferred from Fordham. His son transferred into Penn. Ivanka transferred into Penn. The whole thing. Listen, this whole grievance bullshit about the Ivies As somebody, I applied to Harvard to go to graduate school. Guess what? I didn't get in. Do you see me being angry?
Most people don't.
Right?
Do you see me being angry about it?
Talk about merit-based, right? Like this is
Meritocracy, guys.
You know why I didn't get in? I bombed my GREs.
Yeah.
That's why. And you know what? Fine. It's called a merit-based admissions process, and obviously I didn't cut it according to Harvard standards.
Yep.
That's I fully acknowledge, like, I'm not bitter about it. If I'm angry at anybody, it's at myself and not doing better, not them.
Right.
One of the tenets of MAGA is that inherently unexceptional people are not unexceptional because of anything they did or didn't do. It's because someone else, they, them, those people came for your spot. The one that was deigned, it was deigned by God himself. Because of the privilege of the fact that you were born white and male. You were promised some exceptional existence that the world has failed to provide for you because it's been too busy accommodating other people who didn't deserve it. And that is one of the tenets that they have to uphold 24/7 for those people to share that grievance so that they can say, in Trump, I trust because he sees me.
That's
right.
An
exceptional, unfulfilled promise that some brown person stole from me because they were less qualified, but the woke DEI monster machine thought that they needed my spot. And it's bullshit, but it's powerful bullshit.
It is. It is.
Put it back in the tube.
Yeah,
and we've had this really wonderful opportunity as a country also because to Tara's point, we're not the nuts and bolts country anymore, which is fine if we can reinvent ourselves and train a generation of people to learn how to do something else.
Exactly.
And that is what Joe Biden was trying to do. And look no further than the city of Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh was like working class, unions, steel. Ooh, I just almost knocked over the other microphone. I was so animated. Is now a tech city. It's now a tech city. And like Pittsburgh, if you've been, is a beautiful city. I love Pittsburgh. And it's a great place. And, it's in the process, yes, of inventing itself still. I think it, everywhere has a lot of where to go. But Joe Biden's administration was investing in this because it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take decades to get us to where we really need to be. And, that isn't that great. I mean, that's part of like being an American and living in this time really is that we should have access to the tools and resources to reinvent ourselves to learn how to do something new. Instead, they're like, no. We still want to go into the caves and get the coal and get, it's just like, it's.
But look, there's nothing wrong with people wanting to be plumbers and electricians.
No, of course not.
We still need those things. There's nothing wrong. I come from a blue collar family. I'm the only person that went to college. I didn't get into Harvard. I didn't even bother to apply because I knew I couldn't get in.
Me neither.
Know what I mean? I applied to UVA. It didn't get in either, but
I applied to all the schools plus Syracuse. I got it.
Yeah. So the funny part about it is that, the coming full circle as a resident scholar at the University of Virginia, because of my life experience and because of what I've, been able to achieve in my career, that I was deemed worthy enough now of helping to teach those kids that got into those schools.
That's amazing, Tara. That's really, that's really remarkable. It really is.
I'm still in awe. I'm still in awe of that I got. Not only do I have this ongoing opportunity with the University of Virginia, which is an amazing school, but then I had the opportunity with Harvard. I cried tears when I got that acceptance. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I get a chance to be amongst some of the brightest minds in the world, and they are looking to me to teach them. That is still one of the amazing highlights of my life, and
incredible.
That I still get to be a part of that community. And so it's like, so it doesn't have to be like, nobody here is coming from some ivory tower snob perspective. We are all we all have very humble roots. And so we say this out of love, like, it doesn't have to be either or. And that's what they do. They're setting it up so that it's an either or. And it doesn't, and that's part of the problem. That's what nationalism does. That's the difference between nationalism and patriotism. This populist nationalism bullshit is us or them. It doesn't include doesn't include all of the things, the diversity and the plurality that makes this country amazing. They're trying to make this one homogeneous country that's white men and then these trad women that enable it. No, Okay, that's not what makes America great. I say this all the time. Donald Trump and MAGA actually despise, they hate what makes this country great.
Mhm.
They hate it.
Amen.
Smart
They
people.
destroy it every day.
Right. It's
Amen.
become cool to be like dumb. It's become cool to like not know what's going on or to read books or doing anything.
It used to be, this is the part that drives me crazy. I'm going to use my husband as an example. So my husband came from a family where his dad worked as a lineman for the phone company.
Mm.
His mom, I think, worked as a secretary at a doctor's office or something. They never went to college, and neither did anybody. Neither did his grandparents, from a very working class family. And yet, so people like that, they worked their ass off so they could afford to send him to parochial school. It wasn't like some fancy private school. It was like a little Catholic school that was not overly expensive. And he was the first to get into college, and he got into Columbia.
Mm.
And I think he would say that his parents didn't even really understand what an didn't understand the magnitude of getting into an Ivy League school. But they were so immensely proud of him. And they were so just blown away by the fact. And then one of his brothers went to MIT. Like, it's a real success story of a family where people didn't come from that kind of background, but were proud of their kids and aspired for their kids to go to Columbia, to go to MIT.
That's the dream. That's the American dream.
Somewhere along the way, rather than thinking that rising tides lift all boats, that we need to be happy for people who get into these kinds of schools and aspire for our kids to get into these schools or into the best schools that they can. Not everybody's going to get into a Columbia or an MIT. I didn't. But aspire for their kids to get into the best possible school they can. Now it's become, let's keep everybody down.
Yeah.
Let's aspire to the opposite. Let's make sure that if my kids can't get in, nobody else can get in.
Yep.
And it's my kids are not even going to bother applying because those spots are being taken up by that black kid next door who doesn't deserve it.
That's communism. This is everything that Republicans preached against.
Right, I know.
100%.
It's crazy.
It's the communist socialist shit. Well, everyone has to be the same. Nobody can be exceptional. We're going to make sure everybody comes down and they're the same because it's all for the good of the social good of the community. And that is, somebody in the comments earlier accused me of being a fake Republican and said that I was always a Democrat. And this whole time, me and like Bill Kristol, all of us who call out the constitutional hypocrisy of the current Republican Party. And I'm like, these people are unbelievable because you clearly have no idea what Republicans actually used to believe and what Republican orthodoxy used to be, what the party was actually founded on and based on for many years. Now, we're not going to get into the policy differences of certain things. I'm talking about like the governing principles of the Republican Party. I've got news for you, motherfucker. It's not this. It is the polar opposite of what you're seeing right now. And I cannot, if there was anything more than polar opposite, that's what it be. But right now in science, it doesn't get any more different than polar opposites.
Small government, right.
I mean, maybe according to RFK Jr.'s science. But this is the polar opposite. And people need to understand that. It has nothing to do with me being a fake Republican or that I was a Democrat my whole life. It has to do with the fact that the core principles that brought me and Bill Kristol and those of us who are never Trump Republicans I'm not in the party anymore. It's because we were so hardcore in our principles and thought that those principles meant something, that when we saw what Donald Trump and his enablers were doing, destroying those principles, we said we are not going to be a part of that because we're not fucking hypocrites.
You didn't change, the party did.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I want to make that very clear here, that what's happening right now is not Republican. It's not conservative in the traditional sense or in the liberal democracy sense, which is what the Reagan Republicans and the George W. Bush Republicans and all the Rockefeller Republicans, all Eisenhower Republicans, none of us stood for what's happening right now. None of us. They fought against it, actually.
And by the way, I'm sorry. There's somebody, I just have to correct something in the chat, who said these are erroneous messages about communism anyway. They always nurture the most talented. Oh.
What? What planet are you living on?
All right. First of all,
coming from someone who, person who came from the communist regime.
About the Soviet Union and brain drain. Why don't you Google that? And second, let me just tell you something. My grandfather helped build the first Sputnik. Right? So I think that's as talented as you could possibly get. Literally sent a man to space. and for the first person to go to space.
Before us.
Before the United States. Guess who, when the opportunity came, fled the Soviet Union at the age of 77, the moment he could? My grandfather. Look at how many people, from Garry Kasparov, grand chess master, to scientists and writers and authors and painters and musicians and Baryshnikov, and I can go on and on and on, who fled the brain drain because they were not allowed to do their work. And guess what is happening now? All of these brilliant people who otherwise would be at Harvard, would otherwise be at these institutions of higher learning, not just getting degrees for themselves, but contributing to research that literally would be life-saving for all of us, diseases, and the space program for that matter, and all of these other things that truly would impact American society and all of us on a daily basis. They are going to look at Oxford and Cambridge and European universities. And I will tell you, which you might have missed, Hong Kong, whatever the Hong Kong University Harvard equivalent is, I can't remember the name, just said that if you got into Harvard or a foreign Harvard student and you cannot go back to Harvard, you can go to Hong Kong. The Chinese want to profit off of our misfortune.
And they will. They already are. Right?
They're not going to take the liberal arts people because they're not going to be allowed to freely operate in China, but they will take the scientists.
Yep.
And all of these Alzheimer's research and these pharmaceuticals and all of this medicine that has been developed by the United States for our consumption will be developed by the Chinese. And then Donald Trump is going to tariff the shit out of it. And you're going to be paying more for it because it's not going to be developed here by Bristol Myers Squibb or by Pfizer. It's going to be developed by whatever the Chinese pharmaceutical industry is.
Well,
that's exactly right.
And the head of the stupid snake is Donald Trump. I mean, he is like their mad king of stupidity. Like, back to the steel thing, just really quick. There was a reporter who asked him on the tarmac about Nippon Steel or something the other day, and he was like, "Yes, the steel. We're going to do amazing things." And then at the end, he goes, "Nissan is a great company." I'm like, you don't even know what you're talking about. And then
it is a great company, but that's not what we're talking
I was
about,
like, that's
jackass.
not even the same. That's a car company, you dipshit. And then then there's this thing. I'm just gonna play this, Emily. I'll hit the button. If you saw this, I can't.
As a linguist, translator, and cryptologic technician.
What? Look, just one
as
more
a
time.
Linguist, translator, and cryptologic technician.
Look at Hegseth's expression, by the way.
He seems fine.
Yeah.
Everything's fine.
Everything's fine.
But Joe Biden. But Joe.
Just so people
Joe
understand
Biden.
that was at the Memorial Day somber ceremony to honor our fallen at the most sacred military location on American soil, Arlington Cemetery, where he was talking about that, and also going on about how victimized Pete Hegseth was, and went after Joe Biden, what a terrible president he was. And then you had these motherfuckers in the front row cheering, yay, yeah, that's right, we're going to make America great. You are standing on somber soil, you degenerate draft dodging motherfucker, felon. And you got the nerve to use that time for this shit, and nobody says anything. It's the headlines are Donald Trump, attends memorial ceremony at Arlington Cemetery.
What a guy!
Fuck out of here.
Lays out vision for the future of the U.S. military.
Right.
To that point, because we can't let this go before I think, did you do yours, Tara?
I didn't. My over it is actually kind of goes into that, but go ahead. You can go first, Julie.
Well, the only thing I want to add to this is, can we just play that clip of Jake Tapper for a second? Because this is relevant to what we're talking about right now.
President Trump held a closed-door event Thursday night for top investors in his private cryptocurrency. We do not know who was there. The list has not been released. We do not know how much of the money came from outside the country. The president has, of course, a huge role to play when it comes to regulating crypto. I really have a difficult time imagining that if this was a Democratic president doing the exact same thing, you wouldn't be outraged.
Well, look, I don't know anything about the dinner. I was a little busy this past week, as you know, getting the reconciliation package over the line. And so I'm not going to comment on something I haven't even heard about. I'm not sure who was there or what the purpose was. But I'll say this. President Trump is very active. He's very engaged. He's the greatest deal maker, one of the greatest deal makers of all time. He is working on these trade imbalances that we've had and having tremendous success. We've got over 75 countries now renegotiating their trade agreements with America. It's going to make it better for all of us, everybody in the country. And he is encouraging new technologies, crypto, and the advancement of AI. He's appointed a czar for the first time. We have an AI czar in David Sachs, who's an expert in the industry from Silicon Valley. There's a lot of exciting things happening. The president is trying to encourage that along as much as he can, and I think the vast majority of the country is applauding those efforts. So I'm one of them. I think the result of all this is going to be extraordinary for everybody in the country.
You oversee.
Okay.
All right.
I feel like I'm gonna lose.
It's
my
actually
mind.
a good lead into my over it. Go ahead, Julie.
Keebler elf, little fairy pixie. Anyways, keep going. Sorry.
Let me just say this. This is everything that's wrong with media in one short clip.
Yep.
Two things should have happened during that interview.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, preferably, Jake Tapper should have said, Mr. Speaker, this is a current events show. And if you are going to pretend that you're not up on current events,
Right.
I'm going to say thank you for your time. Goodbye.
Yep.
End the segment. What you don't do is allow Mike Johnson to bullshit about Donald Trump off topic.
Mm-hmm.
And what you don't do is, if you watch the rest of that segment, allow Mike Johnson to then say, and by the way, Jake, better than the Biden crime family, which of course you wrote about at length because you wrote the book and you should have written that book sooner, to which Jake Tapper said, you're right, Mr. Speaker. I should have written that book sooner, but people didn't cooperate with me sooner.
Yeah.
Like, and then he proceeds to talk about the Biden crime family.
Wait a minute. Did he actually say that?
Yes.
Wait a minute. I saw the clip about Mike Johnson. Did Jake Tapper actually say he should have wrote the book sooner?
Yeah, he said if the people who talked to him after the election had basically had the courage to talk to him before.
It's the whole thing turned into a plug for Tapper's book.
Oh.
And
What?
Mike Johnson's monologue. It was not a dialogue, a monologue. Remember, the question was about
The
Trump's
crypto dinner. Yeah, the corrupt crypto dinner. Yeah.
Which he used the presidential seal for, friends.
Correct. Correct. So that's okay. To Julie's point, this leads into my over it, which is actually a perfect segue. We didn't plan this. Julie is 100% correct of what Jake Tapper should have done. And what he also should have done, which is what Kristen Welker and all the rest of them should do anytime these MAGAs get on TV, is when they start going into these, they stop them and say, no. They don't let them get away with saying, I don't know. You play the clip. You show what's happening. And you say, well, here it is. I'm sure you have an opinion on this. Would you be okay if Joe Biden, And then if they don't answer, then you go back and you say, well, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure then you're aware of the fact that the Trump administration has dismantled the cryptocurrency fraud division of the Department of Justice, and that the majority of the people who went to this dinner were And you give the American people the same facts that this person should know and let them answer it, because it's all factual. This is an opinion. This is true. Do you, as the Speaker of the House, the person who represents the people's house, you don't have an opinion on this? Oh, you're not aware of that? Don't you think you should be? Well, now I'm making you aware of it. What do you have to say about it?
Right.
And then let him fumble. Again, this is going on offense. But they didn't want to do that because, to Julie's point, he wanted to plug his fucking book. And this is why probably Julie and I will be banned for life now on CNN. And I don't give a shit, because we're calling it straight. We're calling balls and strikes and calling it straight about what's happening and what Jake Tapper has done. I found out also that Alex Thompson from A Good Authority misrepresented himself to embed in the Biden camp. And because that he was going to write this glowing profile about what was going on, which gave him access to the Biden family in ways that he probably shouldn't have, because it was really all about getting Biden and trying to undermine what was going on. He misrepresented himself, which is how he got so much access. And pointing out that Michael Smerconish actually made a good observation that a lot of these things that Alex Thompson and Tapper put in the book, like the Kamala Harris quote about Anderson Cooper, wasn't actually a quote. There's no quotation marks around a lot of these things because they were told through the lens of someone. They could not put quotes around that unless they have it on the record. So this was a lot of this was interpretation.
Unbelievable.
It's not journalism. It's carnival barking bullshit.
Unbelievable. So, like, you know, I mean, I'm sorry if there are people out here who think that this is the worst scandal since Watergate. Some people
that's
that
what
we know
Tapper said.
Yeah, I know, which is nuts.
Years.
And there's people repeating that, saying, "Yeah, that's
Piers
true."
Morgan. Yeah, I have that clip actually.
So did
It's ridiculous.
Scaramucci, and we like Mucci's our friend, but not like, dude, I don't agree with you on that. Stop it. He's also a big crypto bro, so that makes sense too. But like, stop. Like, and this is my over it as we close today.
I still haven't done mine, but yes.
Oh, I didn't realize you didn't do yours.
Okay,
I thought yours
keep
was
going.
okay.
No.
Well, then I have to go because I have a 1:30 meeting.
Go.
But it's the pardons, the corruption in the pardon situation. I'm sure everybody saw by now because it's big news today, but it started yesterday. And well, Trump's been doing this from day one with the pardons of the January 6th traitors and all that. But he has now pardoned the Creasleys from the show. Creasley Knows Best. My mom and I used to like binge watch it. I loved that show until I found out that they were actually big fraudsters. And not only were they fraudsters, because at first I felt a little bad for them, but then I listened to one of my favorite podcasts, Scamfluencers, which is great. Everyone should listen to it. Scamfluencers did a whole breakdown of what their scheme was. It was like a 3-part series. And it was really blatant. And they were really arrogant about it. And they defrauded the banks of $36 million so they could keep up appearances on this reality show. And they thought that they were above the law. They truly did. And when they were sentenced, the judge basically said, we don't care. This is not a reality show. You don't get to do this. So they got sentenced pretty harshly, 12 years and 7 years. Financial crimes are no joke. Maybe the sentencing itself was a little long, but they deserve to go to prison. Donald Trump went and pardoned them because their daughter, who is a very pretty Southern little belle, has been advocating for her parents, claimed that they were unfairly targeted. No, they weren't. And she spoke at the 2024 RNC. She's been up the ass of Lara Trump, and she's been up the ass of MAGA, trying to get him to do exactly what he did, which was pardon her parents. He didn't even know. He doesn't even know about them. He was like, yeah, I don't know your parents, but I wish them the best of luck. This seems really bad. Okay, fine. They are one of several financial crime people who have now been pardoned by this president, except that some of the other ones actually were like more pay to play. For example, another person that got pardoned is this guy, Paul Walczak in Florida, whose mother went to $1 million a person dinner at Mar-a-Lago. And then all of a sudden now her son's pardon application, now it's been approved. Now he's getting out. This guy stole tens of millions of dollars of money that was supposed to be for like the taxes for his employees. And he turned that money, it was like $10 million, and bought himself a yacht. He bought himself all kinds of extravagant things and defrauded his people and nurses and doctors and defrauded his people and defrauded the government. But yep, he's out, completely wiped clean. And his mother, by the way, not only did she go to this $1 million a person dinner, she also helped to finance the Ashley Biden diary bullshit to try to take down Biden. She also financed some other like crazy right-wing conspiracy theory bullshit that was pro-MAGA. And her son now, he gets to walk completely clean slate. Then he also pardoned this week this corrupt sheriff in Virginia, not too far from a couple counties over from where I live. We don't have the clip of that, but this guy named Sheriff Jenkins in Culpeper, Virginia. The sheriffs are elected in Virginia, and this guy took bribes, $75,000 from these people, and gave them full deputized badges and authority of the police.
What?
Yes. They have no qualifications in law enforcement, none, but they paid bribes and they got badges and they got the deputized authority. That also gives them the authority to carry a weapon in all 50 states. One of the guys was a convicted felon, and he paid money to convince this sheriff to go on his behalf to get his rights reestablished so that he could carry a weapon. This is nuts. This is who Donald Trump pardoned again this week. This was a major public corruption scandal. And, you know, these judges are like, you're not above the law. You broke the public trust. Donald Trump doesn't give a fuck. These are the types of people that he is continuing to pardon. This includes also a whole slate of crypto fraud people that he pardoned back in March. This has been going on and on and on. At the same time, like I said earlier, they dismantled the cryptocurrency fraud division at the Department of Justice. What are we doing? Why isn't this a bigger deal? I mean, yes, the reality show people getting pardoned is dumb enough, but it's worse than that. It's deeper than that. Let's do the full list of all the people and the pattern that Donald Trump's corruption is showing here. This, unfortunately, the pardon power is a plenary power guaranteed in the Constitution. It's one of like the few things that it's like actually spelled out that the president has, and there's no question about it. But what isn't supposed to be legal is the pay-to-play schemes, the bribery parts of this. That used to be illegal. It's not anymore now, thanks to the Supreme Court.
Supreme Court, I remember that. Yeah.
So he's using the pardon pen to pardon whoever the fuck he wants and get whatever he wants from these people. And here we are. And now, and he talks about the criminals and these people who are dangerous immigrants that they're snatching off the
waste,
streets.
fraud, and abuse.
Right. But what is he doing every single day? Every accusation is a confession, and this is another perfect example of that. And it's a disgraceful thing, and everyone should be asked about it. Why is it okay?
Mm-hmm.
But we're too busy talking about Joe Biden.
Yeah. All right, Michelle, you are up because it is 1:30.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll try to go as fast as I can, but
take your time.
But this I just really want to talk about public health here for a second, and as long as we're also just talking about stupid people and how we're all just cool being stupid. And this guy, this quack, again, another millionaire Nepo baby, has been given the keys to all of our health and has no merit, no credentials, no medical training, no nothing, with a brain worm, is now dropping COVID-19 booster recommendations for children and pregnant women from the CDC list. Pregnant women being immensely vulnerable to COVID-19. And listen, I mean, I don't need to tell all of you. I mean, Joe, I know you're in New Jersey, but in New York, we went through the worst of COVID. There were thousands of people dying in our neighborhood. And I just want to talk about this for a second. So the ghost of pandemic haunts U.S. election with win for anti-vax movement. So yes, the pandemic broke people in a lot of different ways. And it led to a broader anti-vaccine movement that tied into MAGA and a distrust of government and institutions. And I went deeper into this, and I found this study that was published in 2020 about the 1918 flu pandemic and its ties to Nazi Germany, and how this is a new academic paper. This was published in May of 2020. A new academic paper produced by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York concludes that deaths caused by the 1918 influenza pandemic profoundly shaped German society in subsequent years and contributed to the strengthening of the Nazi Party. Let's see. The paper also shows that influenza deaths in 1918 are correlated with an increase in the share of votes won by right-wing extremists, such as the National Socialist Workers' Party in Germany in 1932 and 1933. Again, it broke people. And then it led to a broader intolerance of people with disabilities, because the pandemic in that time, especially, obviously, we didn't have the medical interventions that we have now, created a larger disabled community. And there was a grievance against this entire group of people, which we know now, that was a huge part of what was also being swept up in the Holocaust, was people with disabilities, along with Jewish people and others. So this was on CNN with Aaron Burnett on April 5th of this year with Dr. Peter Marks, who was the head of the FDA vaccine situation, and he was forced to resign, and this was his first interview since then.
And then craze.
Sorry.
great group of people at FDA who are devoted to the public health of this country. They work tirelessly to make sure that we are safe, that we have safe drugs, safe biologics, safe foods, safe pet food. We do that by following the science. And if you don't believe in science, or if you want to ignore the science, it's very hard to have people around who can't see anything other than following the science.
In a moment, I want to read to you what the HHS said about you, but I want you first to be able to talk about science, because RFK is reportedly hiring a new vaccine researcher to study a possible link, they say, between vax and autism, which of course has been debunked by science. But RFK Jr. also said this.
There's no vaccine that is, safe and effective. I don't think the vaccine worked. If you got vaccinated, you're more likely to get sick. You're more likely to get severe illness. You're more likely to die than if you were unvaccinated. And if you take the vaccine, you have a 21% increased chance of dying over the next 6 months. There's no science that says that these children are a threat to other children. The biggest exposure is not coming from power plants or old mining claims, as you might think. It's coming from our own vaccines.
Look, I'm just going to say this, and I'm not going to directly confront Mr. Kennedy. He'll have to confront his maker for those lies.
Before you go, Doctor, I know that you're concerned about, obviously, the vaccine of this, but I know one of your biggest concerns as you leave the FDA, and I know you're resigning, but obviously not by choice, you wanted to continue doing your work, is biowarfare.
I just didn't regulate vaccines. I also regulated innovative biologic products. By leaving, I leave behind what we did with cell gene therapies that could have helped people, for instance, kids with cancer who had no other treatments. And I also leave behind a group now gutted that was ready to respond to natural and man-made threats. Yep. At any given time, there are many, many viruses that could come, things like Ebola and others that could be very dangerous to our country. We had a group that was prepared to deal with those. Additionally, I can't go into all the details, but there are man-made threats that we were prepared to deal with. Having that capacity means that today I believe we are weaker as a nation, and I believe our adversaries know that we are weaker as a nation because we don't have that capacity.
So I say all that and I show all that to say that I am over the individualistic nature that our country has become, with an overwhelming distrust of institutions and smart people, and just a general lack of caring about other people. And I think it was, that was exemplary during the pandemic in the early days and even into 2022, I'd say, like, oh, well, people aren't dying except for, well, people with, health issues or disabled people, because apparently that was okay. And here we are again. And I remember at the time saying, I was like, once this country becomes comfortable with mass death, we are in trouble.
We have.
Right. And here we are. We are in deep, deep trouble. And so we have become so, disconnected from reality to our own detriment. People are going to die. Not just of like the diseases like, cancer and other things like that we are not going to have the research and treatments for anymore, but we've pulled out of the World Health Organization. We do not have an active acting director even of the CDC right now. We have Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is an idiot and an anti-science conspiracy theorist, and 2 other people running our vaccine programs in this country. We may not even have an updated COVID vaccine this fall, let alone a flu vaccine. So I'm hearing right now about the next wave of COVID because Asia and Hawaii are always the first ones to get it first. I am reading online about people who are experiencing this next wave of people having bloody phlegm come out of their mouths and coughing up blood and having razor blades in their throat. Essentially, they're saying it's a nightmare. It's awful, and we're not going to have any protection for it next time. And so that coupled with this biowarfare thing, it's just, to be individualistic at this point, it unfortunately is our way of surviving, because our government doesn't care about us. They're not going to care about us, and our neighbors, to an extent, aren't going to care about us either. So I urge everyone in my Over It to take care of yourselves and your family and try to stay healthy and have things in your home. Hold on to things that can protect you from whatever's coming next, because man, this is scary as hell.
And what's interesting to me about this, Michelle, is that you have people protesting world events, rightly so. What's happening in Gaza right now is a travesty. But 1 million Americans died at Donald Trump's hands. Where are those protests?
Yeah.
Right. Where is that outrage?
Right.
These are neighbors. These are friends. These are our relatives. These are parents and children in some cases. And for those of us who are in New York, and Joe, you're very close, so you probably saw this as well. I remember walking through Central Park at the height of COVID. I got COVID very early. I got COVID in March.
Oh, you did? Oh, I didn't know that, Julie. Wow. That's so scary.
It was scary for 2 weeks. And I remember, because of that, Mount Sinai, which is a hospital here in New York City, was running these tests where they were asking people to who had gotten COVID to check. I think they were called their tithers or tithers or something, to make sure. Basically, they wanted to check my blood every so often.
Yeah.
For research purposes. So I would walk across Central Park all the way up to 105th on the east side, which is where. And I would have to walk past this field hospital.
Field hospital, right.
Park. And I couldn't really walk well because I was this was like the early, really awful stage of COVID.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm just saying this because I remember walking past this field hospital, taking a picture and saying, holy shit, what are we in Rwanda? There was literally a hospital outside.
Yeah.
In the park.
Yeah.
Because we can't handle, because the hospitals here are so overcrowded. And I remember going to City MD. I think I have COVID, can I have a test? And the doctor said, how old are you? And whatever old I was, 40 something. And he said, do you have any pre-existing conditions? And I said, no. And he said, I'm sorry, we're not wasting a test on you. This is the United States of America. This is the state of New York.
Yeah. And I had a friend who's about your age who had it. He had a temperature of 105-ish, and for about 6 or 7 days. And they said, until you can't breathe, just stay at home. Don't go to the hospital. Just stay there. And he did. And he lived up in Hamilton Heights, not far from me. But yeah, I mean, like, that's what they were telling people. It's just like, there were no tests. There were no masks. There were nothing.
Nothing. And this is what the doctor said to me. You probably have it. You have all the symptoms. I'm going to give you some advice. Unless you truly think you are dying, and I don't mean dying hyperbolically, but unless you really can't breathe, do not go to the emergency room. There will be no room for you, and you will probably die faster there. This is, again, 2020 in the United States of America.
And remember that as soon as we hit, I think it was 50,000 deaths, Donald Trump started golfing again.
Yes.
He went back to golfing.
Yes. He didn't. I mean, he was slowed the testing down. It'll be gone by Easter. I mean, like, I saved every issue of the New York Times. Remember the New York Times? They had the first 100,000 people on the front. I kept all of them, because a ton of my friends who were all in theater on Broadway all got it very, very early, very sick. Some of them still have heart conditions. There's a guy named Nick Cordero that I knew through an old friend who I knew years and years ago. When I heard he was in the hospital, I was like, "Are you what? 40 years old? He died. He died.
Yeah.
Very publicly through the storytelling of his wife." But like, this all can happen again. COVID, we had it easy, because the next one might not be. It could kill people faster.
Well, we also had Fauci, who actually was trying to help. Now we have
no one. No one.
I don't even know who the hell's nobody's in charge of the CDC, but who's the epidemiologist in chief now?
I don't know that there is one.
No, I don't,
because we don't have any acting director of the CDC. And again, it's like poor Dr. Fauci, who's like 80 something years old now, is like living his life, his final years in secrecy, essentially, because he can't go anywhere, because these crazy people who hate smart people and the distrust of institutions and whatever else think that he's some sort of like, I don't know, but they threatened the man's life, his children's lives. I mean, again, he's an American hero who comes from a family of doctors and scientists, and he was just serving his country like he has done for decades. And this, you know, they detest all of this. And so it just really, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that keeps me up at night. It scares the crap out of me. Maybe it's, you know, just a little PTSD from living in Manhattan during the, you know, March and April, May of 2020. But Joe had to go. But you know, that's just
yeah,
you know. So anyways,
it's awful, and that's all there is to it. All right. I have to do a live, I have to do an AMA actually for my paid Substack subscribers with Ogle Atman right now in Russia. So if anybody here is planning on joining that, I will see you 2:00. And if you're not, then we will see you, Michelle and I and Jojo and Tara will see you at 10 a.m. Eastern on Saturday for Coffee and Conversation, which is my favorite, all-time favorite part of the week because it's just
mine too.
Awesome. So thank you to everybody who's joins that. You guys are such an amazing community, and these shows tend to be a little heavy because the news is heavy, not because we want to. But Saturday morning.
But next week on this show, we're going to have the host of a Golden Girls podcast, and he is hilarious and smart and just infectious. We met him at the Webby Awards. He's coming next week. So next week's show will be really, really fun.
Yeah. And the week after that, we have Shannon Watts coming up. For those who know her, she's amazing as well. So no, not the week after that. I'm sorry, the 18th. I will be gone the week after that. There's somebody here who was very nice and said in the beginning of the chat, they're worried about me traveling abroad. Can I just stay home?
I am too.
I appreciate that for this one, and I'll explain when I get back. I just can't stay home. It's a very meaningful trip that I'm taking, which I'll talk about when I get back. Hopefully, if I don't get back, all of you guys can go and petition somebody to try to get me out.
Don't even say it. Don't even say it.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine. But thank you for the concern, and wonderful to see all of you on this chat, and we will see you on Saturday at 10. Bye. See ya.